Let me make that very clear. The Eagles haven't made a move so far that I didn't like. As far as from preseason, I'm sorry, from training camp on, right? You know, they traded for Jakorian Bennett. I like that move, right? They traded for John Mechie. I like that move, right? And on Sunday, they traded for left tackle Fred Johnson. Fred Johnson was on the Philadelphia Eagles for 3 seasons before the Philadelphia Eagles decided to move on from him. He became a free agent in 2024, and he ended up getting signed. He ended up getting signed to the Jacksonville Jaguars on a 1-year, $1.3 million deal right after winning the Super Bowl with the Eagles. The Eagles decided, you know what? Hey, Freddie, we need your services. The Eagles sent a 2026 7th-round pick to the Jags for Fred Johnson to come back to Philadelphia. And Jeff Stoutland developed Fred Johnson. Fred Johnson is on record saying before getting to Jeff Stoutland, his career was kind of in limbo. He was hard-headed. He was stubborn. And working with Jeff Stoutland has really taken his game to another level. He's grateful for that, right? And you bring him back to the fold as Mailata's backup. And he did a phenomenal job, by the way. Fred Johnson, that is. Fred Johnson did an amazing job filling in for Jordan Mailata last season. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Jordan Mailata ended up on IR. He missed 5 games due to a hamstring injury. And Fred Johnson filled in for those 5 games, and Fred Johnson played pretty well. He wasn't too much of a liability. You were able to see the strides he made from 2022, his first year with the Eagles, to 2024. You saw Fred Johnson doing a pretty good job. I mean, he did a pretty good job on Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson is a star edge rusher for the Cincinnati Bengals who's looking for a big payday. He's one of the best edge rushers in football. So Fred Johnson did a pretty good job dealing with him. And the Eagles bringing Fred Johnson back is interesting. It says a couple things, right? It says that they're not too comfortable with where those rookies are, Miles Hinton and Cameron Williams. They're not too inspired, or they're not too confident about where those young tackles are, right? They've been developing those guys, trying to see if they could potentially be the backup to Jordan Mailata. They also brought in a free agent in Kendall Lamb, who's a veteran, who's played a lot of left tackle, a lot of tackle in his game. And they also brought in Matt Pryor, who's played a lot of guard and right tackle, in particular right guard and right tackle in his league as well. But when you think about the Eagles' depth chart at tackle, based off this move, they haven't been too inspired by it, right? Again, Miles Hinton got a lot of penalties in the preseason, very raw, still developing. Cameron Williams got a lot of penalties in the preseason, very raw, still developing. These guys have athletic traits you like, but again, technique and fundamentals and understanding what Jeff Stoutland needs them to do, they're still very raw. So when you think about it from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense for the Philadelphia Eagles to go and get Fred Johnson again. And again, this is why I say, or I ask, are the Eagles trying to make up for some mistakes? Because they had a chance to bring back Fred Johnson. Again, he only signed a 1-year, $1.33 million deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Wasn't a lucrative deal at all. And the Eagles said, hey, Freddie J, we know things didn't necessarily go the way we intended, but you mind coming back to the fold? You mind coming back to the party? And the Jacksonville Jaguars said, hey, you can have him. Just give us a 7th-round pick. Howie said, okay. And look, this isn't an indictment on anybody. I want to make that very clear. This isn't an indictment on Howie Roseman. It's not. It's fascinating because this is why you have extra draft picks. This is why you make sure you're always in a position of flexibility and adaptability, right? The Eagles have so many draft picks, they can afford to make mistakes. That's what makes it so fascinating. They have the draft capital, especially on day 3. They have the day 3 draft capital to be able to cover up for any blemishes they may have not foresaw. Look, they were betting on young guys in the draft. They were betting on some of the free agents they signed in Kendall Lamb and so on and so forth, right? They were betting on that. So far, Kendall Lamb, Miles Hinton, Cameron Williams, they clearly feel that the left tackle depth hasn't been inspiring. So you go get Fred Johnson back, someone you've developed, somebody who's proven to be able to take over those key snaps if need be. So I'm not mad at the move at all. I give I give Howie Roseman all the respect, all the kudos in the world, right? Like I said, the excess of draft picks has afforded Howie Roseman the ability to make mistakes and correct them rather quickly. Another case in point, the Eagles decided to trade for quarterback Sam Howell and a 2026 6th-round pick. They sent a 2026 5th-round pick and a 2027 7th-round pick to the Vikings. So the Vikings receive a 2026 5th and a 2027 7th, and the Eagles receive quarterback Sam Howell and a 2026 6th-round draft pick. I like that move as well. I like that move as well for the simple fact that, let's be honest about this. After Tanner McKee, that quarterback competition was putrid. You drafted Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. You had to cut him. He didn't really show too much in preseason games, right? Or nor in training camp. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, you traded for him. You sent him to the you sent Kenny Pickett to the Browns, and you got DTR in return. Kenny Pickett is better than DTR. Let's just call it what it is. And both DTR and Kyle McCord did not have inspiring games in the preseason or an inspiring training camp. So you got Jalen Hurts at quarterback, and you got Tanner McKee, who's already dealing with a finger fracture. So you got to make sure, God forbid, if it ever came down to it, you're going to have a reliable quarterback 3. You're not going to go into the season with your starting quarterback and Jalen Hurts healthy, your backup quarterback and Tanner McKee dealing with a finger injury, and then a rookie backing him up in Kyle McCord, or an uninspiring backup in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. You're not going to go into the season with that. If Jalen Hurts goes down in week 1, you're not going to put a rookie in there in Kyle McCord, and you're not going to put DTR in there. Those guys have shown you nothing to be inspired about. So you trade for Sam Howell. Sam Howell has started a lot of games in this league. As a matter of fact, Sam Howell, in 2022, he was a rookie, only played and started in 1 game. But in 2023, he started in 17 games, played in 17 games, started a whole season for the Commanders. In 2022, he had 612 pass attempts, 388 completions, completed 63% of his passes, threw for almost 4,000 yards, 21 passing touchdowns, had 21 interceptions, though. But again, as your third-string quarterback, a guy who has starting experience, a guy who's been a high-volume thrower for his career with the Commanders, you take a shot on that. I'd rather roll the dice on Sam Howell than roll the dice on DTR or roll the dice on Kyle McCord as my quarterback 3. I'm not doing that. So going into week 1, Sam Howell will be your quarterback 2, Jalen Hurts your quarterback 1. I can live with those results. I've seen Sam Howell throw at a high volume. I've seen Sam Howell be highly competitive in football games. 2024, he spent it with Seattle, only played in 2 games. And I think he was signed by the Minnesota Vikings in the offseason, but ultimately didn't end up playing a snap for them. I think he played in the preseason for them. Let me double check this real quick. Sam Howell says here, he had spent 2024 in Seattle, and I guess he got picked up by the Vikings, and then he ultimately got traded to the Eagles. So the Eagles got him on 1 year right now. He'll be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. All right. So again, that move made sense. I'm totally on board with that. Your quarterback 3 competition hasn't been inspiring at all, right? And then the Eagles did another trade. This is another move I like. The Eagles traded offensive tackle or offensive lineman, excuse me. They traded the offensive lineman, Darian Kennard, somebody they've been developing. They traded Darian Kennard to the Packers, and the Eagles got a 2027 6th-round pick in return. So that tells me the Eagles had clear intentions of cutting Darian Kennard, but they've been developing him. He's put up some okay tape, okay enough to the point where you can get some kind of value back. They basically said, you know what? We'd rather get something for him than nothing. We put some time and effort into him. Let's try to get something back. They got a 7th-round pick back they got a 6th-round pick back for the 2027 NFL draft. I'm not mad at it. So the Eagles made 3 trades. 2 of them, they got a player back. and a draft pick, and one of them they got a draft pick back. So keep in mind, they sent a 2027. They sent the 2027 7th round pick to the Vikings. They got a 2027 6th round pick back for Darian Kennard. So I love what Howie Roseman has been doing thus far. This has been his 4th trade in the past 8 days. In the past 8 days, he's traded for left tackle Fred Johnson. He's traded for quarterback Sam Howell. He's traded for a 2027 6th round draft pick, sending Darian Kennard to the Packers. And he traded for a wide receiver in John Mechie. So the Eagles have gotten back 3 players, and they've gotten back 1, 2, 3 draft picks. 2 for the 2026 draft, and 1 for the let's make sure I got this right here. Yeah, 2 for the 2026 draft, and they got 1 back, and they got 2 back for the 2020, and the 1 back for the 2027 draft. So you send picks out, you get picks back. You get picks back. You send picks out, you send players out, you get some players back. Now, these moves, and again, this goes back to the title, right? Are the Eagles trying to hide some mistakes here? These moves that they've made have partly been pro-actionary, and I'm not even sure pro-actionary is a word. I don't really think that's a word at all, but we're going to use it as a word today. I'm coining that word, pro-actionary. Part of these moves, in my opinion, have been pro-actionary. Some of them have been reactionary, right? I would argue only one move has kind of felt pro-actionary to me. And that was the John Mechie trade, right? You traded for John Mechie at wide receiver. At that point in time, we were all high on Johnny Wilson, Darius Cooper, and Anaya Smith, right? We were high on those guys as your wide receivers 4 through 6. But then Johnny Wilson gets hurt right after that trade happens. Hence why I say pro-actionary. Because Howie Roseman is looking like a fortune teller. He's looking like a genius. You trade for John Mechie one day. A couple days later, Johnny Wilson gets hurt with a season-ending injury. Now it has to get season-ending surgery. So now wide receiver 4, 5, and 6 is looking like Darius Cooper, John Mechie, and Anaya Smith in no particular order right now. That move was looking like a pro-actionary move to me. As far as reactionary goes, I would say getting Fred Johnson back here is reactionary. You made your move. You decided that left tackle isn't quite where we wanted to be at. React. Go get Fred Johnson back. The Jakorian Bennett move, right? Like I said, the Eagles have made 4 total trades in the past 8 days. They've made 5 total trades in the month of August. The Jakorian Bennett trade, reactionary. The cornerback 2 competition hasn't been inspiring. You want to get ahead of it? You go get Jakorian Bennett. You were betting on Keely Ringo. You were betting on Adoree Jackson you brought in as a free agent. They're not looking as good as you thought. You go get Jakorian Bennett. You reacted. Right? Moving on from Darian Kennard, I probably wouldn't even call that reactionary at all. Probably couldn't even call it pro-actionary. Maybe. You moved on from a player, you got to pick back. You didn't want to lose him for nothing. So I'm not mad about that, right? I just looked at it. I look at that as moving on from a guy you were going to cut anyway. And you got something back for him. Simple as that.